Welcome. You're watching Rugby with Rifle, a podcast about all things rugby and life, with your host, Danny Pabone and Rifle Scudder.
Hello, tribe, and welcome to another episode of Rugby with Rifle, a podcast in which we bring awareness of the sport of rugby to the American audience and beyond. So I'm joined here by my friend Rifle again. And in our last episode, we were talking about a series by the name of Chasing the Sun 2. And remember, guys? Go to rugbypass.tv and create your free account so we could watch this series. A great series, a great documentary following the journey of the South African rugby team to the World Cup final and championship. So it's a great series, great documentary. So make sure to go to rugbypass.tv and create your free account so that you can watch that series. So in the last episode, we started to talk about the first two episodes and a few things that I found very interesting. So we're going to continue to talk about those first two episodes, and Rifle is going to touch upon a few things that happened during those episodes. But before we do that, Rifle.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back again. Glad you're joining us here. I must say, Danny and I are having loads of fun putting this together and watching videos and watching the whole series. If you made your account and you've watched the second season, you can actually go to the original one, which is just called Chasing the Sun, and that was South Africa and the Springboks in Japan in 2019, the previous World Cup, and they did it. Excellent, the best rugby documentary that is, and I am a biased person towards the Springboks, but rugby people around the world say that it is just phenomenal because they go into the change rooms, they go into the homes, they go into every single aspect of the game and the Springboks and their mentality and what they do and why they do it. So Danny and I have been having just a blast watching that and just sharing stuff with each other, but we are so happy and grateful to be able to bring it to you. We're excited for the Rugby World Cup 2027 in Australia, and then 4 years later in 31, it's coming to America. So we're trying to just learn about the game, and so when it does come to America, we don't have to ask questions. Who's that? Why is he doing that? What's he thinking? We'll know everything about the game, and we can just follow and enjoy. So welcome to episode, is it 6, Danny? Episode 6?
Yeah, episode 6.
Okay, so welcome to episode 6, and yeah, let's take it away, Danny.
Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, I've enjoyed very much watching this series. And let me just share so that the tribe will have a good understanding of what we are talking about during this episode. So one of the very interesting things that I found in episode 1, Rifle, was the whole process of selecting the players that are going to go to the Rugby World Cup. And I believe the episode 1 had mentioned that there are 33 players that are selected, but only 23 can play in the game. And then in one of the episodes, you explained that you have the bench, the reserves, that
Right.
consist of 8 players.
Right.
Now, these 8 players, there's different numbers, and I just wanted you to touch upon that you will hear 7-1, 5-3, and those are the reserves they are referring to.
Correct.
So I just wanted you to touch upon how the team is selected and the thought process behind selecting the reserves.
Okay. So here we're going to go a little bit deeper than what we did in the beginning. In the beginning, we actually had this picture here, and we said there are 15 players on a team, and you got your forwards and you got your backs. But now that we know a little bit more about the game, now we can go a little bit deeper into thought processes and things like that. So you have your 15 players on the field, and then you have what you call the bench, as you so rightly explained. And now, depending on the coach, depending on the country's what we call DNA, how they like to play the game, depending on the weather, depending on the circumstances, there are so many things that goes into a coach's reason for picking the 23 on game day. So are they the best players? Is someone in form? Has someone got a lot of experience and they put someone new next to him so the guy that has lots of experience can help the new player? There's just so many things that go into choosing this, whatever your number is for the bench, whether you choose, and you're going to hear a lot about this in coming episodes. So I'm going to explain it very nicely so that you can understand. So you got the 8 reserves on the bench. So what the reserve is there for is when players either get hurt, and God forbid that happens, we just want to use a player when the guys on the field are tired, when they can't go anymore, because as we know now, rugby is 80 minutes and you do everything. You don't take a break, you don't come off, you play for 80 minutes. So if you push yourself all 80 minutes, it's really, really hard to put out the same effectiveness and energy all 80 minutes. So when guys are tired, or unfortunately, if there's an injury, then you can take the player off the field and you can replace that player with somebody from the bench. So most of the time, you will probably have a 5-3. So maybe you'll have 5 forwards and 3 backline players. And sometimes you'll have a 6-2. South Africa went absolutely bonkers, and South Africa for the first time, and did it in the World Cup final, and people absolutely lost their minds, because what South Africa did is they had a 7-1 split, which means South Africa on the bench had 7 rested forwards, the guys who do the lineouts and the guys who do the scrums. And they took the chance of having only 1 extra backline player. So in other words, if one of your backline players gets hurt and you bring on the other backline player, no one else can afford to get hurt in the backline, because there's no more backline players on the bench. So it's a huge risk that South Africa, that Rassie and Jacques Nienaber were doing. But if you go into this documentary and you sit, so to say, in the decision-making room with all the coaches, and you probably got about 10 of them there, and they all got computers and they're talking to one another, and one says, let's do this, and another says, that's not a good idea, let's try this. And they sit there for 2-3 hours and just decide which players to pick. South Africa, our DNA, if I can put it that way, is big, hard forwards, the guys in the front, and we want to dominate. We want to absolutely obliterate our opponents. So we do that by scrumming, we do that by the rucks, and we just want to kill. So every scrum, we just go in as hard as possible. Like I said before, other countries, if they come to a player, there's an opponent standing in front of you, most of the time, the other country will try and run around them. South Africa, we want to go right over you. So we just, that's the way we play. So what people were complaining about is, can you imagine if you are number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you play in the forwards, and you got to scrum, you got to line out, you got to do everything for 80 minutes. And let's say after 50 minutes, I mean, you've been scrumming, you've been playing, you've been pushing, you've been giving your everything for 50 minutes. You are so tired. And the next thing, you see the bomb squad come on for South Africa. And the bomb squad is the name that Rassie and the guys came up with for our reserves on the bench. So the bomb squad is normally 7 forwards. So in some games, Rassie took 7 tired guys off the field and replaced them with just as big or bigger guys who are fresh and put them in number 1 to 7. So now you've got the tired opponents who've been scrumming and doing everything for 50 minutes, and now they've got to go for another 30 minutes, but now they're scrumming against guys who just came off the bench, who are fresh, who are ready to play, who are willing to give their all. And that's just what we do. And like I say, people absolutely, there's a guy, Matt Williams, good Lord, if you listen to him, you'd think we absolutely crucified someone on the rugby posts. He was so angry, and you can go on YouTube and listen to what he said. But
All right, Rifle, let's keep it PG. Let's keep it PG. I know your thoughts about him.
currently, what South Africans do is when we get through difficult times, we joke about it. So you'll even in this Chasing the Sun too, you'll hear the guys joking about the big boo-ha about the 7-1. But I wanted to explain it nicely so you can understand, because in episode 5, this is going to come up again, why the 7-1 is such a big thing. But you have the guys on the bench, and you can choose 3 backline players. You can choose 7 backline players if you want. There's nothing in the rule book or the law that says you have to, out of the reserves, you have to have 5 forwards and 3 back. It just says 8 fresh players from the bench, and you can choose what position that is. But that's why it became such a big deal. And as I say, South Africa's DNA, the way we play, we are hard up front, we hard in the back as well, but we like to tenderize the enemy with our power in front, and then try and put them under pressure and on the back foot, and then we try and bring the balls to the back. So do you understand? Does that make sense?
No, that's perfect. That is perfect. That's exactly, the explanation that I had in my mind, but obviously the way you explain it is much better and much more understanding. So yes, that's the genius of, again, we spoke about this, of Rassie, was considered to be one of the best, if not the best, rugby coach, currently coaching in the world.
Correct, yeah.
So that this segues perfectly into another thing that caught my eye in the first 2 episodes was, and this shows the boldness and the genius, or I should say continues to show the boldness and genius of Rassie and his style of coaching and game planning was. And that's why I have this diagram here. So in the first 2 episodes, something very interesting happens. And the hooker, which is number 2 for South Africa, I heard is considered to be one of the best rugby players in the world.
Correct, yeah, Malcolm Marx.
Yes. And unfortunately, in between game 1 and 2, he had a gruesome injury and was forced to leave the team. Now, here's where it gets interesting. South Africa is down to only 1 player that has experience in the position of hooker. And his name is, please remind me again.
Bongi Mbonani.
Thank you. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce these names.
You can say Bongi. His name is first name is Bongi.
Okay, there you go. Because that's what I have you for.
Bongi.
So, again, the boldness and genius of Rassie is, instead of calling up another hooker, he decides to call up a fly half, which everybody went berserk. It's like, what in the world is this guy doing? Now you're down to only one hooker, and God forbid if he gets hurt, what are you going to do?
Right.
So please explain to the tribe why Rossi is not crazy.
Well, that's actually very easy to explain in this circumstance. As you said, Malcolm Marx, and even in the documentary when they show the bus, because it's a cliffhanger, when the one episode ends, it ends with Rassi saying F.
Yes.
And then people just F, what F? You know, now you think, oh my goodness, what's going to happen in the next episode? What happened? And then the episode starts and Malcolm Marx's legs is just off, his ACL gone completely. So, and there's a funny story about Rassi taking some of the medicine as well that they gave him for the pain just to
I
feel
found
better.
that funny.
But in any case, so now Malcolm Marx is hurt. You need at least 2 or 3 hookers. It's such a specialized position. You know, if you take a flanker, someone can stand or, you know, scrum on the side of the scrum or 8th man, you can do that. But number 2, he's in the thick, in the middle of the scrum. I mean, you need, as you correctly said, a specialist player there. So in the real world, in a perfect world, you would bring in a perfect hooker, a guy who plays 2. So you go to South Africa, pick the next best hooker, and he would be flown into play. But what happened to South Africa before the World Cup is our fly half, number 10, whose name is Handré Pollard. So we can call him Polly, Handré. He played for South Africa in previous World Cups. He slotted kicks in the previous World Cup in Japan. And he is, if you ever want someone to take a pressure kick and kick for posts, if your life depended on it, you wanted this guy to take the kick. But unfortunately, he was injured. So he was not picked for the Springboks. He couldn't go to the World Cup. That was one of our biggest dilemmas. We did not have a specialist kicker in the team. We had another fly half, Mani Libok, who is an amazing attacking fly half. He can spread the ball. His rugby brain, he can tackle, he can kick, but his kicking to posts is not good. He gets flustered. The game clock that they count down puts him under pressure, and he doesn't kick well. So we do not have a specialist kicker in the team. So when Malcolm got injured, Handré Pollard had played, I believe it was 1 game for his club after injury. But because Rassi trusts his players and knows what he can do, and because of the experience that he has, Rassi said, okay, we're going to gamble on this and we're not going to take another hooker. We're going to call up Handré Pollard, which is a fly half, which is crazy because now you've only got Bongi to be the hooker. And as you said, God forbid, if something happens to Bongi, South Africa is done because we do not have another hooker. So Rassi and Jacques, they called up Handré Pollard because they knew in a pressure situation, and these games can come down to 1 single point. And if you don't have a guy with ice in his veins to take the pressure kicks, you sunk. You cannot win the World Cup. And that's exactly, I won't spoil it, but that is exactly what happened. So that's why Handré was brought in and not a specialist hooker, is because we needed someone that could take those kicks, who has proven himself already, even though he only played 1 game after being injured, and he was brought in, and that's why. So that's why I say it's actually easy to answer here, as Rassi's thinking was, we do need a specialist kicker, because if he were not injured, he would automatically be in the team. He would probably one of the guys that would be picked first. But due to injury, we had to work around that. And then once again, the whole world went absolutely bananas. And this was planned by South Africa, and they did this on purpose. No, they didn't. They just called him back, and it worked out well for us in the end. So I hope that answers the dilemma we had with our number 2, almost losing his leg, and we only had one specialist hooker in Bongi after that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of plays into in every sport, no matter what, whether it's soccer, basketball, baseball, whatever team sport you want to talk about is when you're the number 1 team in the world or the number 1 team in the league, people are going to come after you. And I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. There's going to be hate. There's going to be people talking negative about how you play or the decisions you make. So, that aspect of it is not really different in any other sport.
Right.
So with that, you brought up another interesting point, and the third thing that I wanted you to talk about was in the second episode, South Africa plays South Africa's first 2 games in the World Cup were Scotland and Ireland.
Correct, yeah.
And one of the things that Rossi mentioned was Scotland is the most important game.
Yeah.
And, you would think it's the first game. How is that the most important game?
Yeah.
Now, the second thing is South Africa did not have much success against Ireland over the past few years prior to the World Cup.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting was you just brought up that if your kicking game is not up to par, it could lose you a lot of close games.
Correct.
So the thing that I wanted for you to touch upon was the adversity that the current fly half at that time, starting his fly half, Mani, the adversity, because you had touched upon it, that he was going through with his kicking game. But the captain of your team, Siya Kolisi, during the press conference, had an amazing answer. And I'll just let you say pretty much what he said. So can you just touch upon, again, the team going through adversity, playing Scotland, playing Ireland. I won't say who won because I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
But the adversity that they went through, especially during the Ireland game, and the captain, again, Siya Kolisi, his answer was amazing. So can you just touch upon that topic of adversity, but
sure, yeah.
being able to play through it?
Yeah. I've said in a previous episode, and it's something that we always say in South Africa, and every interview Siya said it, he said, if you're not from South Africa, you won't understand. But the whole issue was Mani, as we've said before, is just under pressure. He doesn't kick well. So he's missing kicks. And he was kicking poorly. But as I said, he's a brilliant attacker. I mean, he kicks for the corner, his little grubber kicks. So when he's not kicking for posts, he's brilliant. So when he was playing in the game, he didn't do too well. And because you said you don't want to give it away, so I won't give it away either. But after the game, people came and they said, surely, what are you going to do? You got this number 10. He's great at attacking, but he cannot kick for post. So What are you guys going to do? Are you going to drop him? Do you have another person you can bring in? What is your mindset with this guy? Because he's just, he's not good. He's going to cost you games. And the coach and Sia Kolisi just said, guy, you don't understand. He said, we play as a team. We don't lose because one player did poorly. We lose because 15 guys on the field didn't take every opportunity that they could. It doesn't come down to one kick. If we lose a game because of one kick, it means the other 88 minutes, the other 14 didn't do their job properly. So no, we're not angry at Marnie. No, we're not going to kick him out of the team. No, we're not going to send him back to South Africa. He's one of our players. He's one of us. We win as a team. We lose as a team. So no, whatever you guys are thinking and talking about doesn't even exist. It doesn't even register on our scale of what are we in panic mode? Are we going to do this? It's just not going to happen. And then when they asked Jacques Nienaber, the coach with Rassie, they asked him the same question. They said, this is bad. Marnie can't kick. Are you worried about this? And his short and simple answer was because in the game against Ireland, Marnie won player of the match. Even though his kicking was horrendous, he still won player of the match. I mean, he was that good. So when they asked Jacques, this is a problem for you guys. What are you going to do? Does this not bother you? And he said, doesn't bother me if he wins player of the match. And that's what I absolutely love about South Africa, about our team, about Rassie and Jacques, is they back their players. It doesn't matter how bad you played. It doesn't matter. Now, let me just tell you, in the change room, when Rassie and Jacques are talking to the guys one-on-one or having a team talk, it may seem very, very different. But they're not just going to get rid of you because you had a bad game or because you didn't do something well. So these two coaches, what they did is they changed the culture before they changed the rugby team. And the culture is they will die for one another. They play for one another. When they win as a team for one another. And when they lose as a team. 15, 23 made the loss. Not just one player, because if it comes down to one little thing, one kick, it means the rest of the team didn't do exactly what they had to do. It shouldn't come down to a kick. So that was their answer. And Sia said, you guys don't understand. Marnie, we win, we lose together. We're not angry. It's not bothering us. We are one team. We'll go back. We'll fix our problems and we'll come back stronger next week.
Wow. That's an amazing mindset.
It is. And they speak about it in this as well as in Chasing the Sun, the first episode, the first series. They talk to Rassie and then they speak to the players. And that's what I said. He changed the culture. And when Rassie came in, he's very straight. He doesn't hold anything back. He doesn't have backhanded comments. He goes to the player and he'll tell you exactly what he thinks. He'll tell you exactly what he wants from you, so that you know where you stand with him. You know what he wants from you, what he likes, what he dislikes. So the players are not walking around worried about, if I had a bad game, maybe he's going to drop me. So they're nervous, they tense, and now they don't want to play their natural game because they're worried they make a mistake, because they know Rassie's got their backs. And now they can play. And if they make a mistake, they just carry on and continue without having that fear over their head. I'm going to be dropped because I made a silly mistake or something like that. And that is so powerful, where your coaches absolutely back you and they've got your back. They're on your side and they stand up for you, whether you did great or whether you didn't have a great game. It's the 23 on the day that did it, not just one player.
Wow. And just what I love about what you've just spoken about is you could relate that, to life. Is, sometimes we are trying to accomplish something that's extremely hard. And playing in the Rugby World Cup in a game against the number one team for 80 minutes of just ruthless, ruthless tackling and pushing and running. I mean, how much harder? I can't think of something much harder physically than that.
Yeah.
And to have that mindset of, hey, you're going to have adversity, you're going to have a few bumps in the road,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that you just quit. And that's one thing that Rossi also touched upon was, you know, yes, we're going to have adversity, but are you just going to quit? Are you going to say it's over? It's not over.
Right.
It's not over by a long shot.
Yep.
And that mindset is critical to achieving a goal that's extremely hard,
Mm.
which winning a Rugby World Cup, that it falls into that category. It's
Yeah, definitely.
extremely hard.
Yeah.
And if you take that, I mean, winning a Super Bowl in the NFL is extremely hard.
Mm.
Winning the soccer World Cup is extremely hard. I mean, you could take that to any sport where teams compete at an international level. Winning a championship for that sport is extremely hard.
Mm.
And the teams that stay together are usually going to be the ones standing at the end of the season. And you have to have that mindset of, hey, we win as a team, we lose as a team. Yes, we need to make minor adjustments. Yes, maybe we need to tweak our game plan, but turning against each other is not going to solve anything.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
So just the mindset over these first two episodes. And again, go create your account and watch the series. You won't regret it. I'm going to
Mm.
say it over again. It's such a great documentary, not only about rugby, but about life.
Yeah. Your other question that you asked was, Rassie was saying Scotland is the most important game. You said it's the first. The reason for that is, and Rassie said, because if we lose against Scotland, and this is in any pool, it's not just for South Africa. So you have your different pools. You have Pool A, Pool B. You can lose one pool game and you can still go through to the quarterfinals. So our first game in our pool, we were playing in what was called the pool of death, because you had South Africa there, you had Scotland there, and you had Ireland, which means of the top five, those are ranked top five in the world, someone was not even going through the pool stages. One of those brilliant rugby nations weren't even going to go to the quarterfinals. That's how tight and how silly the pool draw was. So that's what Rassie was saying. Scotland is our most important game, because if you lose against Scotland, your very first game, you have, as he said, you got a gun against your head, because you cannot lose again. If you lose again, you're out, you're gone. You're not going to make it. So if you beat Scotland, if you get off on a good foot and you can eliminate one of those, Ireland, Scotland, South Africa, your chances to go through to the quarterfinals are so much greater. But if you lose your first game against Scotland, then every single game from here on has to be perfect. You can't make any mistakes. That's why he was hammering the importance of the Scotland game so much.
Wow. And that again, that all falls into mindset.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
I mean, it goes to show, especially in professional sports and at the level of being at the Rugby World Cup, that mentality is just as important as physicality.
Oh, yes.
Because I mean, you could be physical, but if your mentality is not right, it's it's going to be very hard to win.
Yeah, that's right. Rassie uses the example. He said, you can go and you can take 8 wrestlers or 8 bodybuilders and just put them in the forwards. These guys are big, they got muscles, they're huge. But if you don't have the mind to play the game and stand up for your brother and defend your brother and your country on the field, doesn't matter how big you are, because people talk about, like I say, the 7-1 split. They're so angry about it. And Rassie says, well, if that be the case, then just throw 7 bodybuilders on there. They're not going to do as well. It's not just size. It's, as what you said now, it's the mind as well. Do you have the ability to say, I'm drawing a line in the sand here, no one's going to come over that line, I'm defending South Africa, I'm playing for everyone at home now, and I'm going to give my all, and I'm going to give my all for the guy standing next to me? Can you get that out of the players? Can you have a mindset when they run onto the field that they're willing to give everything for the guy next to them? That's very important. And that's why I say Rassie got the players to that level of believing for one another, not just for themselves, believing for something bigger than them, which is South Africa back home. They honestly believe they're playing and helping, because when the Springboks win, everything in South Africa, even though it's broken, it's a good week because of the Springboks won. So that's what they're playing for, is for the guys back home. But mindset, as you say, in everything is so important in rugby as well.
Yes. So with that, again, thank you, Rifle.
Very welcome.
We will end this episode, and Tribe, remember, if you haven't already, go to rugbypass.tv, create your free account so that you can watch this wonderful documentary following the South African rugby team in the 2023 Rugby World Cup. So with that, again, thank you, Rifle. Tribe, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and looking forward to our next one, where we'll continue to speak about this series and talk about certain topics in episodes 3 through 5. So again, Tribe, thank you for watching, and until next time, thanks again, Rifle.
Yes, thank you. Have a good afternoon, or wherever you are, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, guys, until our next episode, take care. Thank you for watching this episode of Rugby with Rifle. Remember to press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, to support this podcast.